welcome to the Mentors by Design podcast. We are part of the Mission Matters, and it's led by Adam Torres, the leadership that I look up. And today we have a special guest, that's Roman Shulyak. And Roman, welcome.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you for having me.
The first time I heard about you, it was my son, actually. He came home all excited because he knew we were about, right, at that time we were about to list our house. And he said, Dad, you should try Roman. And we already established long-term relationship with this agent, and she was good. And I know how upsetting that would be to her because she really invested in a long-term relationship. So I said, well, Jason, first of all, this is a $3 million house. I just don't believe that I can trust Roman, who is like a little bit older than you, still under 30, that I can trust him with a multi-million dollar house. But that's exactly what he's selling. Look him up and stuff like that. And since then, we have a history. And you sold that house. You've been selling the other houses. You recently sold the house for me for $4 million. You bought for me the house for $4 million and then another house. So it's like, so I do have a history, and something that grabs my attention is every time I talk to you is even though you're still young, but what amazed me about you is that the fact that you're willing to share that with others. I see how young people come to you because everybody wants to be successful, and yet you don't think about competition. You are not afraid of competition. Maybe I'm wrong. That's what I would like to talk to you about today is about the competition as well. But that's what grabbed my attention. In our program, it's actually called the Mentors by Design. I'm looking for the people who are passionate about sharing the stories with others. So let me ask you a first question is, if you were to describe yourself in one word, what would that be?
It's really hard to do that in one word, Victor, but I think, a bunch of words come into mind, but I would say motivated could be a good word. Relentless, maybe, just because it was very important to me to, whatever goal I had in mind, whether it was selling an expensive house, whether it was to hit a big goal or overcome a milestone or a problem, is to make sure that I relentlessly thought through all the possibilities and make sure that whatever needed to be done, that there was a way and solution to do it.
So I want to rewind, go back to the history. Imagine we're like both of us were teenagers, we're both of us 15 years old. And me and you, we just go and we're sharing our thoughts, we're sharing our future. And I'm asking you, Roman, what is your dream? Did you actually, so at that time, you knew that you will be successful. What was your dream at that time, being as a teenager?
I think my dream, and I got this asked recently, what was my dream job, if I could ever say, it was I had a big passion for cars. I think I had a big passion for cars, and for my dream job, even to this day, probably would be, if I had opportunity to also do it, would be like to be a test driver for really high-end companies. To say, hey, Roman, here's a car, here's our new release model, go drive it for 500 miles, go drive it across America, let us know what you think. Just because I love the feel of just, being in control, and just different cars, different trucks all have different, things that they're good at.
Well, for me, when people ask me, for example, similar question, I usually answer my dream was that I wake up each day with a passion that I know I go to do wherever I'm doing, wherever I'm working on, that I get up with passion. I get up with excitement. And that's what really moves me on, because I know the experience of what is it being working, doing something that you don't have passion, but you simply doing that because why? Because you have to provide. There is bills to pay, but the life just didn't work out this way. That you are fortunate enough to do something and to make money where your heart is. So
Yeah.
how is those things play role in your life? Is it real estate is something temporary that you see yourself, and you actually the goal is to become the test driver for super
Mhm.
sporty cars? What is it?
No, and I think that that ties into when I was young was the motivation part is I worked with my dad at a shop on trucks and cars, and he was a mechanic. So to me, I had that love for cars growing up young. I would wash my parents' cars every week. It was my Saturday hobby. Make sure all the cars were washed, the grass was cut, all that sort of thing. But in return, what motivated me was to buy my first car. I remember like yesterday was to saving up. I painted houses on the side growing up. I cut grass. I did work with my dad. And to me, I was so excited for my first car when I turned 16. Is I remember I bought an Acura RSX. It was $8,000 car, and I saved up.
With your own money,
Yeah,
with your own money.
and I saved up $6,000, and my dad gave me 2,000. But it felt even. He was like, Roman, it's a little nicer car, but I will help you. But it felt so good to almost buy the whole car with my own money and basically say, you know what, I worked for this. And
So the family you grew up, your parents, were they wealthy enough? Could they just like
no, no,
if
no,
you
no,
didn't become successful, would they just okay? Here's whatever car you want, I'll just buy for you.
no, no. And see, my family were immigrants from Ukraine. I came here when I was 8 years old in 2001. My
So
parents,
somewhere inside, you knew if I want to have something, my parents will not be able to afford that. I
yeah,
have to
yeah,
work
yeah.
out myself to that.
My parents are blue collar. My dad, he never had a lot of money, growing up when we were raised, and he's blue collar. He worked every day, long hours, and he planted that into me. So my dad planted into me is Roman, whatever you want to have in life, you always have to have savings. You always have to go work. Don't have any debt. Just keep working, and working with him through my childhood helped me keep my native language. I speak Ukrainian, read, write, and Russian, and but he always taught me to have that hunt, to have that desire that if you want something, go and work for it. And my dad, we moved to America with a couple $100s. My dad had nothing, and even buying my first gas scooter as a kid, I
It
had to
has to be your own money.
it had to be $250 because my dad didn't have the ability. My dad was making $8 an hour when we moved here, and he was paying me $1 a day, and then $2 a day, basically
Mhm.
saying, just slowly, slowly, slowly keep going. But I think there's a part in that is that it helps it. A lot of people that are successful or call themselves successful is there's different. You can tell when someone's successful when they had nothing and they went from nothing and they crafted it and they worked it and they failed and they tried again and they failed
Right.
and tried again, and basically and you worked it that way versus it being handed to you. I think that once somebody hands that to you, I think once you know how to do it yourself, I believe you will forever have that trait.
Yeah, but what important to emphasize is that even subconsciously you knew it's not going to be handed to you, and
No,
that's what I was
100%.
trying to get it from you is because, like, for example, I'm in a position, I have a three almost adult sons, and one is being 26, 21, and especially 17. And I'm asking myself, would it be better for their advantage if they knew subconsciously that is not going to be handed out to them, and they would have more that hunt, just like you're saying, more persistence,
Yeah, yeah.
and maybe that's the thing that they know even subconsciously, that well, if nothing work out, it will be
Well,
given to
okay.
me,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that will help me. And so it just philosophical question. So as you're pursuing and you have your goals, what would you say your biggest achievement, you're the most proud of?
Well, I think I haven't had much awards given to me throughout. This is year 9 of real estate for me. I started at 20 and now I'm 29. And recently, the award that people have recently got me to know even more of is I won the National Association of Realtors 30 Under 30 award, which
Wow.
goes into classification of where every year. This year there was over 300 and I believe 50 realtors nominated,
Hmm.
top realtors that from their offices that all sell at least 10 million plus, get nominated for this award. And a couple months later, there's a panel of judges that are on the big board of national. This is National Association of Realtors.
So what is the process of qualification?
So the process qualification is you have to really go through a deliberate interview, and you have to explain why you believe you should deserve this award. What do you do besides having a lot of sales and being successful? Is, what do you do for your local community? What do you do to empower other people? How do you give back? What are you involved? Basically, they want to see people that also help, just make a difference too. So I think there's 1.4 million realtors.
Oh, wow.
There's 1.4 million.
And
And I
it's
think,
only chosen 30 people.
well, from the people under 30, there's
But there's
45,000.
350 people.
There's
350.
There's 45,000 people that are under 30 years old, they said
Mhm.
nationally. And I made it to the list of top 50, and then the judges reviewed it for top 30, the final 30, and I was the only one in Washington State. But that was, I didn't kind of soak it in the moment, because I never wanted to get over myself or think that I'm so good or so high up there. So until I kind of realized that when I began to have random people on Facebook, Instagram message me, say, Roman, I saw in the magazine, I saw in the email, I don't know if you know how big of a deal this is.
Wow.
I tried personally 5 years in a row, and I never got there. And I never got nominated. I never made it. And even this morning, I was at a young networking event, and the people were like, Roman, what do you think helped you? Because,
Because they want to repeat that.
this gal was like, she was like, Roman, I've tried for 3 years and I can't get in. But she's like, I can see why you won. It's incredible to see what you've done. But I think that was a really cool award to get recently. Kind of made all the years tie into feel worthwhile.
Well, there's a lot of people who would like to be successful, whether this is selling real estate or else just the startup business.
Yeah.
And what do you think is there is like a principles what helped you, and what do you think you would like if I ask you and I'm a beginner, what would you share with me like that made you that successful?
Well, I think what people realize, the successful realtors or successful businessmen realize, is a question often brought up, is I think my focus is I try to create like a VIP experience for the client, for the customer. I want them to feel very important. I want them to feel that they can reach out to me with any need, and I want to feel like they feel like they're well taken care of. Specifically because in real estate, we're usually dealing with you purchasing or selling one of your biggest assets. Even yourself, there's multi-million-dollar deals involved, and it's very costly to make mistakes. It's a big, honor when a client chooses to work with you and say, you know what, I entrust you to do this for me. And I think that I can't wait to see what you do. Kind of like we built a relationship a couple of houses later where you're like, Roman, here's the keys.
Right.
Just do what you say, whatever price, and here you go. But it takes years to establish that point. So what I tell new realtors is, the biggest thing you have in any new business is, besides all the competition that's out there, is you have time. I'm like, someone like myself, I have a lot of clients now. I don't have the time to give a client, I can't show them 10 houses a day usually, like you can. I'm like, so make that client feel so important, and make them feel like that make the client feel like they're your only client.
Mm-hmm.
Even like, even if you are a new agent, they are your own client, make them feel that way. But for me, I try to make sure that I delegate enough time to each client that they feel like, you know what, I can text Roman at 12 a.m. I can text him at 6 a.m. He'll respond. I can reach out to him and ask him to take care of this need and that need. But I think it's very important to make sure that the client feels, emotionally, mentally, that they're well taken care of.
But something that I remember as being as a startup business myself many years ago is a question of how to be confident, because like for me many years ago when you were just a startup, of course you're you're willing to make somebody to feel like they are king, because you really don't have nobody else in your life depend on these people, on their decision whether they're going to sign a contract with you or somebody else. And I had to deal with people who are like in a top position, like they're top executives. And who I'm just startup, and I'm the fresh immigrant from Soviet Union back then. And I don't have much knowledge, I don't have much experience. But if I had that lack of confidence, and I think a lot of people have, because the moment you have the lack of confidence and you're trying to come to the client to build that relationship, that client
feels it also.
Yeah, it feels it also, and cannot help it but to reject you. So how was for you, because you're still young? Yeah, I remember our experience where you came and I could see the confidence in you, that I could read in your eyes, like, hey Victor, I can sell this house, I know how to sell this house. It's something speaks to me emotionally. It's more than wherever you're going to give me as a arguments, like why you, not others.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what do you think? Do you recognize that in you? How do you make yourself feel that confident? What is it you do?
Well, and the truth is, people, you can be confident, but the thing is, you also have to, for me, it's years of experience.
But do you have to like fake it until you make it?
You in the beginning you have to. In the beginning you have to. I remember my first sale was $14,000 mobile home, and I was excited just about having a past client. And then when I went to the next client, I would tell him, "Yeah, the market's doing well. I just sold a house in one day.
I just sold the house.
I just
in
sold a
one
house
day.
in one
Right.
day, and things are going." But I think that confidence, for me now, I think that's my best attribute now, is how confident I am in the knowledge I have gained in real estate. Over 400 houses later, I don't even do market analysis anymore. I don't sit there and put charts together and worksheets, because I have sales in every city. I sell houses every week. I know the pulse of the market. I educate myself really well on it. So I know, just looking at your house within a few minutes of what the recent neighbor sell, I already know the price that it's going to be roughly. But I think that the better word in the confidence is you have to have the drive. I tell people is once your motivation is temporary. I tell people motivation is temporary because you get it a little bit, you're excited to work out, you go try it for a few days, and then it goes away. But if you're driven to have a goal that you see in mind, that you're like, you know what, I can't wait to be a top real estate agent. I can't wait to have a successful business. I can't wait to do this and this. And you have a plan in place, and you're just relentless about it, that you're like, you know what, this will get done. And you have the drive and you're excited about it, and the confidence come from actually, people will feel that you actually love this job, that you sound confident, you look confident, because people will judge you in the first 30 seconds, the
Right.
first minute they meet you. If you look like a professional, if you come across, you say the right things, do you compliment their house? Are you actually excited to sell their house? Do you, I'm very good at complimenting the house on people. I'll say, you know what, your house is beautiful. I can see you maintain it really well. And I just cannot wait to see how well it'll do. But I think everybody, people emotionally will judge you and see that in you. And I try to tell people, you have to be the pro. I mean, we're looked at as professionals.
That's right.
It's the
That's
same
right.
thing as I bring the doctor example up all the time. You go to your doctor and you have foot in your pain. You hope that the doctor is going to tell you, listen, you need to do this, this, and this, and it's going to go away.
Yeah.
And because you trust them as a professional, and we're trusted as professionals in our field, or even in your field, and whatever else is that.
So basically, the confidence, it comes from the first is you build up yourself with the knowledge of the market, with the knowledge of your job, and then
Yeah.
then reassure yourself if this is something you really feel passionate about. Is this is something you willing to serve people and
Yeah.
help them to see the value and actually maximize that value, but also is what's important. I believe what you said is to have a track record where you
Yeah.
actually sold something, where you can actually show to the customers, okay, this is what I have done. Just like you said, well, I just sold a house in one day. Was there like one time you remember that you had to take a risk in your field or wherever in life? What was the most risk you had to take?
Well, I think every time a new agent reaches out to me about real estate, for example, is I tell them it's a really long-term business, because it looks so awesome on social media and movies and shows. And I'm like, but the risk, they told me if day one is, Roman, do you have money saved up? And I
Okay.
said, they're like, do you have at least $10,000? I'm like, yes. They're like, because you can go 6 months or a year with no pay. It's such a high risk.
That happened to you. So
Yeah.
without 6 months, 12 months, you had zero pay.
No, for me, it took me five months until I closed my first deal. I made $422 my first 5 months in real estate. And I tell people that because I go, don't be discouraged that you just started. And you're like, Roman, it's been a couple weeks. I have
So
no
at that
clients.
time, you said to yourself, Roman, don't get discouraged. This is long term. This is still investment. So is that how you look at?
I was so determined to prove. I was so determined to prove to myself and to my family and to my friends and to everyone that was said that, Roman, good luck. You're 20 years old. You're trying to become a real estate agent. I had a baby face. I had no facial hair. I did these things on purpose. I grew out hair to look older. I changed my cars to look a little more presentable. I did all these things, but I think it's, because it would help me. But I think, overall, yeah, definitely need it.
So who do you look up for the inspiration? What motivates you?
I think now I'm very self-motivated. I'm very self-motivated. So I think for me personally is I realized that I always performed best is when I put myself in uncomfortable situations. So if that means that,
Being uncomfortable, determine that. What does it mean, being
so to me,
uncomfortable?
like uncomfortable is, for example, I will on purpose, like my mentor, I could say growing up in his business was Oleg Patch, and he would, for like one thing he did to me in the beginning was, Roman, you like cars? Go buy yourself an expensive car.
So being uncomfortable, then you know that you have to make
Yeah.
this payment.
So he said, calculate what the payment's going to be. And to me, it was like $1,000 at the time. And it was a lot. I was 23 years old buying an $80,000 car. And I calculated I needed to sell one house for
Hmm.
$500,000 to pay for this car for the year. But he's like, what it will do is it'll motivate you. Every day when you get into a nice car, you feel better. Mentally, you feel excited to go meet people, to go
So
try some deals.
you probably have a lot of debts now. So that's what
No,
motivates you.
no, and I got that car, and besides the fact of everybody telling me I was dumb, why did you do it? You're so young. You're signing up for this. Are you kidding me? Is that car made me double my income that year? I doubled my income at 23 years old.
So the fear of not paying is actually
That
kick
just
in.
having that payment, it would motivate me basically to you know what, I have something waiting for me, I have to produce, but it would naturally create more business for me. I came to new clients, they would look at me and say, you know what, this kid's probably doing pretty good, he has a nice car. But uncomfortable situations, for example, also tie into making myself do hard physical challenges. Can I run, for this many miles? Can I do this? Can I do that? Even where I live now, I live with a really crazy view. But to me, that view at 6 a.m. at midnight, it motivates me to work. It motivates me to put in the extra hours. And I also think about that payment as well. But it's that uncomfort. I feel like only any
So,
business person will say that.
so the other word would be for the uncomfortable is you like to challenge yourself.
Yeah,
You
you
like
have
to
to. You have to
you
show.
like to challenge yourself.
Because I think the biggest problem is once people get a little bit of success, is you have a good couple months, is you get comfortable. And then you
Yeah.
coast, and then you think it's okay, it'll always be like this.
What's also important, I remember I talked to the very famous figure skating, and at that time they were champions, and they had such a disciplined life.
Yeah.
And I remember we invite them to go to the party, but the way they behave, it was telling me they have a goal, and this is how it was. And a week later, they won the first place, and they were the world champions. Talking to them after, they lost themselves, they were not themselves anymore.
Wow.
And as we
Wow.
discover later, what happened was it was lack of goal. So goal or the aim helps you to motivate, to discipline yourself. And so you really have to have the goal, and one is short term
Yep.
and the other one long term. Would you agree on that?
100%. And I think your word of discipline it's so huge with how important discipline is to anything you do in life. Like even my parents disciplining me growing up, right? But it's I realized if you discipline yourself to make yourself do certain things and hit those goals, and that if you don't hit that goal, to have a fine for it.
Do you fail sometimes in those
Of
in
course,
those
of course.
goals?
I mean,
Especially knowing myself, I like to have a goal, but sometimes I cheat because nobody knows. Nobody really knows
you can only lie to yourself.
what the commitment I gave to myself. Hey, Victor, you're going to read this much, and then I feel like I'm just gonna relax. But then that thought comes to me. Well, you made the promise and you
Yeah.
just fail. You just fail. You keep, and then you keep saying I should, and you just should lower yourself.
No, see, and that's where you also, the other word that comes in is accountability. I think discipline
Oh
is
wow, that's really
the
good.
discipline.
That's really
Discipline
good.
comes across really well once you have somebody that holds you accountable. For example, me and my friend, I told new realtors, I'm like, listen, you want to get busy? Okay, you're gonna send me your chart every week of you making at least 10 calls a day. I want it in my phone Monday morning, and if you don't, you donate $100, for example. So you have some kind of fine associated with it. And I've done dozens of challenges like that with partners and with people, because you think about even $1,000 a day. Even if it was, I had a goal we were doing that you had to run, for 45 minutes outside. If you didn't, just send me $1,000. Or you want to have we did a no sugar, no carb challenge. You want to have a cookie? Sure. $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
We would donate it to various causes and ministries, but it makes you think twice about trying to lie to yourself, right?
Right.
But it builds so much discipline in that moment. And what I realized those things do is, when you have a tough situation in business, that say something's blowing up, a client is upset, a seller is upset, something happens, is you don't emotionally broke down. You already developed the discipline inside to overcome that emotionally. Because I feel like business real estate, for example, is 90% emotions. How do you handle failure and times of tribulation that
Yes.
basically, that do you fall apart, or do you hold it together, the confidence again,
Mm-hmm.
that what, do not worry about this, I will handle this, even though, because you're just so built disciplined, and you're ready, and I think that also helped me over the years to come that. But I have a bunch of failures, and I think that, like you asked, I think it's important to write them down, to remember them, because through the failures is what always pushed me to make me stronger.
Well,
Because
that's a good one. That's a good
because
one.
it's the clients that say no.
Right. Right.
How do you
Get it
prove
rejected. Get
getting
rejected.
rejected, proving them wrong? It's like, my wife, I asked her out multiple times, and she said, no, I don't want to date. I don't want to date. I don't want a boyfriend. I want school. And to me, I was like, no, I want you. I will win you one
Right.
day. And I
Right.
did. And it's just like, when you want something bad enough, there should be no obstacles in the way. You should only be the journey. Just keep going.
Well, our program almost comes to the end. Believe it or not, it's almost 25 minutes already has gone. So I could see there is knowledge. Is what makes you strong. So do you keep up some learning? How do you value the education? Would you say you just have it and that's why you're successful, or you still have to sharpen your skills?
No, you have to. You have to. And I think it's education and learning, even in times like now where things are so much uncertainty in the world. There's market shifting, there's stock markets going up and down. There's so much fear, and so much fear out there. You have to, I feel like for me personally, I took on an exceptional challenge of making every day reading the market, studying how many houses have listed, how many houses have sold, how many things have happened, and passing along that knowledge basically to my clients as well.
Well, like for example, now the market has shifted. Is I know for a fact there is a lot of agents. They have a lot of houses sitting on the market, and there is no sales. They cut in the price one time. The second time
Yep,
you could
yep.
see. So is it how does it impact you? For example, you're the agent, and you know this data. How does it impact you?
Well, and it impacts me because I tell the client right away, listen, there is a market shift. I think it's being prepared and having the knowledge to know ahead of time that, listen, this is not the price. I think the biggest problem with the agents that have listings that are sitting is they were just overpriced from the beginning. I think if you had the knowledge and you were educated, through books, through podcasts, through studying the market, through everything, that this is not the correct price, you basically tell the client, and the client has the choice, then, or the choice of who they're going to go with, if they think you're right or wrong. And that's what they have to trust
I think
you.
what I kind of discovered recently, because we, as you know, I had to put the house on the market, and so I have engagement with one agent who comes to me and said, "Well, you better put the house on the market sooner rather than later because of the shift." And but what I read in his eyes, it's a lot of fear. And I'm
Yeah,
thinking to myself,
yeah,
can I really trust this person? Yes, he has a track record. Yes, he is good, but I could read a lot of fear. So I could tell this
confidence.
agent, he is under so much pressure, and because of the pressure, there is probably lack of sales, and lack of sales leads you to, oh well, it's just not going to work. It's just not going to sell. When you instead, when I ask you those challenges questions, I could see you are still confident.
Yeah.
So again, how do you feed? So is it, do you feed yourself differently? How do you feed yourself that in the morning,
Mhm.
regardless, wherever news you heard, you still have the confidence? So when you talk to a client, you kind of like, you come like almost like a preacher. Hey,
Yeah, yeah,
not to worry. Because
yeah.
one thing you could say, oh yeah, not to worry, not to worry, but I can read in your eyes a lot of fear. That's different.
And the thing is, this is fear is so crazy, because even in negotiations in real estate, if you smell fear from the other agent, or that they're scared, or that can actually pay more. There's so many little hints people can give. But I think to myself is, it goes back to that confidence. When I take on a listing, for example, and people ask me a price, and my pitch always is pretty much, listen, we don't get paid unless the house sells. And I invest into each client. So I will spend thousands of dollars on photos and video.
So in other words, if I don't trust that will sell, would I even invest?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I had a listing recently where I spent probably $7,000 into making this listing perfect and through photos and videos. And the client went, well, you know what? Listen, if you're that confident and I can just see it in you that you're like Roman, that you're like, you know what? This is going to happen for this price. And I'm willing to put this much money of my potential commission. Right. Potential commission, meaning that, if this doesn't sell,
but there is a risk.
I'm the one that takes the loss.
Right? And you could have just cut the cost of making,
and you can't
find somebody as a photographer who charge you less,
$100,
but that would be the quality difference. And then even creating those amazing videos that you have created, even from my house, that was something that I could see. Well, there was a talented people behind this. There was a time consuming behind this, and that what develops the trust. And especially in a hard market as this, the quality has to go up, not down.
And I think that's where you have to invest, for a business standpoint, you have to invest in the people that support you, the team behind you. And I like to tell my clients is I have the best team behind me. I want to tell myself I have the best video guy, where I tell him, listen, there's no budget on this. This has to, and I know once I see it, I know once I pick the song, once I pick the video, I'm trying to create, because I know I'm trying to create that emotional connection for a potential buyer to see the home and go within a couple seconds, I want to come see it, and create that even in the photos. I want to make them to come, my goal as your listing agent is to bring clients, right? Bring the activity. And I think it's very important is once you have the best team behind you, people else can see it, and then other clients, because I'm 99% referral based. My business has been built off, 64 of the 66 house I sold last year was all past clients, was somebody like yourself telling a friend, oh, you want to sell a house? You want to buy a house? Listen, only go with Roman. That's my goal. I spend $0 on marketing, Victor. I literally focus so much on providing you such a great experience. And I think it's important to take that into any business you're in. If you're in fine designs, if you're at a car dealership, what experience do you create for your client, for the customer? Do you make them feel, again, so important that they want to tell their friends, listen, I went to Jaguar, I went to Porsche, and oh my God, they gave me coffee. They offered a free car wash. They did this, and this. You should go to that guy directly. And I feel like to me, it's always awesome when I get a referral like that from a client, because I don't have to sell myself anymore. Their trusted friend referred them. And then once I come, they see that confidence. But I think it's important for people to, in any business, basically to, even if the client's wrong, even if the customer's wrong, or even if it's a really tough situation where you're going to lose money to make them comfortable. It might cost you extra. You might have to work an extra hour. You might have to stay later. You might have to be earlier, is to do it. Because I find in myself is I really value my reputation, and to have one bad client for me that says one bad thing about me could, it costs you dozens and dozens of clients. Right. So I take that very importantly.
Well, our program comes to the end, unfortunately, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I could feel it, how completely honest you are. You're very sincere, and I believe people going to see that as well. If there our program, it's about mentorship, it's about mentorship, is helping others. If there was one advice to a young fellow who is trying, but he or she failed first time, failed second time, and especially this is, like we said, this is a different time, what one advice would you give them?
I think in myself, those tough moments, I know a lot of people experiences, is, as strange as it might sound to some people, is I'm a Christian guy, but I would literally go fast for a day or two. I would pray about it. I would really run to God, and I would say, you know what, God, you see this challenge, you see this problem. If it's meant to be, please help make it happen, right? Wow. And I think that I would, and I know that if God pushed me away from that situation or that client or that house, that it would not work. But I think that, it's so much mental in that moment of down, on that moment of trouble. You dig so down deep to yourself to want to blame everything.
Right.
Is how are you spiritually? How are you mentally? And I think it's important to keep yourself up on those things that, when you're spiritually good, you're close to God, you go, you know what? I will keep failing, but God has my back.
Conviction of faith.
Yeah,
Conviction of faith. It's like,
exactly.
so it's not about like going on Sunday to a church. Faith
No,
is
no.
actually is where you are. Is
Yeah.
That's how you proclaim. Is that's how you worship God, and it's during going through this tough season,
Yeah, and
but trusting
and
God.
God was almost like a mentor to me, but I think it's also important to have close people that are mentors in the space, that you can come to them, in times of, if it's your spouse, if it's
And
your wife.
believing this is like a long term. This is will
Yes,
work out.
yes.
Yeah, no, this is
And
good. This is
I
good.
think you have to be ready for failures. I think it's
Yeah.
the.
So don't be afraid of failure, even first time, one time, second time, but have trust in God and have this goal, long-term goal, you will succeed.
Yeah, build it on the rock. You know that
Thank,
it's not
thank
easy,
you,
and it'll
Roman.
go.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Victor. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.